I've done it. I've committed to becoming one of these self-indulgent cunts who feel like they need to have a podcast. But this is the working title so far. Welcome to the first episode of the Something Clever podcast. Something clever. It's because everyone else has got a clever title. And when I was a 16-year-old schoolboy, I needed a Hotmail address. And I couldn't think up anything clever like everybody else, like another podcast title. So I just went with Something Clever. And so, yeah, we'll go with that. We'll work with that for now. This is the first one. And got an amazing bit of gear. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Possibly the only people seeing this will be followers on my Facebook page, which is great. We might chuck it on Instagram. We'll see how we go. But I wasn't sure if I was going to film either because I didn't have any dynamic background. I've only got this beautiful painting from my good friend Greg Flay, who's quite a good, accomplished Indigenous artist back over in WA, and he gave that to me to put up in the background. Otherwise, it just would have been cupboards and shit. But the ultimate thing that's pushed me along is this brilliant podcast recording kit given to me by my friend Gump. I can't actually remember Gump's full name. I think it was Corey. I can't remember. I played footy with him for 3 years. I can't remember his real name. But shout out to Gump for this recording studio. We're going to have a crack. We're out here on the property. The wife is out with the dogs and the horses, and I am in the office trying my best to be imaginative and creative, but I actually wasn't sure if I would be able to talk about anything in particular, but just going through the news, going through my Facebook feed, stuck in isolation in the house like everybody else, even though the restrictions are starting to lift, I'm quite curious as to whether we've made it through or not. And if that is the case, you know, what have we learnt through isolation? But everybody's talking about this sort of stuff. But I wasn't sure if I had any topics I wanted to discuss or if I could casually talk about it. But then the radio presenter, then the journalist, then the comedian all kicks in. I was like, there's a microphone. I can talk into it. But I'm not going to do it sober either. But just going through this whole thought process of freedom to express and talk as a presenter is a bit nuts because I just finished a bit of a run with the ABC presenting the national program in the evenings, which is always good. It's great to get back on the tools and get back on the ABC tit for a bit of steady work, especially in a time when so many comedians have lost work. And then I get to go and work at the ABC and have a bit of fun. But going from stand-up comedy back into presenting at the ABC where there are all these rules and restrictions and timelines and you got to stick to these things. When you're a comic, you only have two priorities. Be funny, do your time, don't go over. That's really it. But with the ABC, there's so many other rules and guidelines, and because you're representing them. Now I'm trying to do a podcast where essentially I can say what I want and do what I want. There are other rules when you want to be monetized and make a living and all that sort of thing. I'll figure that out. But let's try and get some people listening in the first place. But been some positive feedback on the Facebook page from people when I put out the feelers about whether or not they would listen to a podcast. Generally positive, but yeah, generally people are quite curious. I still can't get my head around how many people listen to podcasts, how many people actually venture out to listen and be aware of what other humans are saying. This is my issue. My issue is that as a comic, as a journalist, I have gotten to the age now, I'm 38, I'm going to be 39 in November, where I start to see other humans as just fucking obstacles. I don't see them as people. And so you could be talking to me, you could be the sweetest person in the world, and the whole time I'm like, you holding me up from getting somewhere? I just see people as an obstacle, and I'm wondering if it's the comedian aspect or the journalist or just getting older. But valuing your time it can make you abrupt, it can make you a bit more rude, but it really affects me when I go into the ABC when you're supposed to be really compassionate and care and all that. It's not the biggest issue to have. I could have a virus at this point in time, but at this point, it's more a case of trying to negotiate that freedom of being a comedian on stage. You can literally say what you want as long as you're funny, and then going back into an office environment. But yeah, this all kicked in. COVID-19 all came in at a weird time for many people. My stand-up career was going as good as it's ever gone. And I was going through the phase of this material, which is quite old, and then going into the next phase of starting a new show, historically accurate, and building on that. And then all of that just like everybody else is from a creative point of view. Again, I'm aware how self-indulgent it is to talk about fucking how this is affecting my art. Fuck off. But more a case of now that we're probably through the worst of it, unless, there's another wave and everybody fucks that up. But it's interesting to think about how this has affected many people's ability to develop comedy. I think I've written like 3 bits, maybe, out of 6 weeks. I've grown a beard. That's the most indulgent. That's the most successful thing I've done in the last couple of months. But, and then I'm having a crack at this podcast thing, which I'm hoping people like. I am recording on camera, which, give or take. I've got to put it on YouTube, got to make it more accessible. Still learning. Every time I feel like people don't watch YouTube and realize that's where most people get their content. So we'll go with that. I was just lucky that this old football mate he got drunk. I love this story from my mate Gump. He got really, really drunk and bought this little recording studio, this Rode recording studio, which is brilliant. It's absolutely amazing. And tried it once because he was going to do a podcast. And then got drunk, bought it, tested it once, and then just never touched it again. So shout out again to Gump. Thank you for that impulse buy, of which I've been doing a lot. I never bought online. I never bought. I'm so impatient. I want that instant gratification whenever I buy something online. And my wife loves it. She does this weird thing where she'll buy something online and is stoked when she forgets about it. And then weeks later, it turns out she's like, this is amazing. Whereas I press the button, put in all my details, send away. I'm like, when the fuck is this thing getting here? So I'm very impatient when it comes to online purchases, but I'm glad the Gump made this one. All right, so being a bit selfish, this is all right. This is flowing. This is not exactly Bill Burr, but and I'm only 2. This is my second beer. But again, I'm aware putting myself out there on a podcast and filming it. I go away for comic friends of mine and go, this is fucked. This is pointless. Why does he even think he can do this? And then other people who are stoked. There's a lot of events coming up. As far as life events that I could probably just talk about and roll with. We're going to aim for about 30 minutes, and I don't want to push anyone's attention spans too far, but I feel like the common ground what a lot of us are sharing right now in isolation might be a bit of a binding agent when it comes to talking about topics. There's a lot of weird things that have happened, but most excitingly is that my wife has been accepted into the Mongol Derby, the horse race across Mongolia, 1,000-kilometer horse race. She's going to have a crack. She's going to do it. And I would love to create a podcast with her about that experience, because that's a huge event. It's a year and a half away. They were worried it was going to get shuffled because of COVID, like everything else. I think even the Olympics might get back on. Who knows if cases drop off entirely. Luckily, it's not in the States. But it kind of leads me to the first couple of topics I wanted to talk about. I'm not even sure if I should do this because I just spoke for 9 minutes about garbage that was in my head. I felt like I should have some topics because more background for those of you who don't know me or do know me. I am a comedian. Stand-up comedian. I kind of got to that point where I had the job that I always wanted. I worked very hard to get there, and then COVID kicked in, and then I'm back on the tools. Now I'm video editing. I'm helping other people learn how to do that, how to do video journalism, how to be, how best to practice video journalism. And it was weird. I flew through this. I don't want to be one of those people that talk about it. I know that there are a lot of people that struggled through this time. I was a casual worker. I was in the arts. This came in, and I have to admit, I landed on my feet. So I feel for a lot of people that didn't have it as well, or good. But got no idea how it was ever going to work out for anybody. Whereas my situation was I just fell back on skills that I thought I'd never use again, which is just dumb fucking luck. And I am the first to admit that. Funniest thing though, of this whole situation, I've never been on the dole. I've never had to go to Centrelink in my life. I've never had to go for government assistance. And that's not, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying from the age of 17, I've always, whether I was a chef, a journalist, working in the mines, whatever, I was always gainfully employed. The funniest part about this was that the minute Centrelink, public assistance here in Australia, started giving out money to people in the arts, I have never been given so much advice on how to apply for Centrelink by wealthy arts degree holding white kids in my life ever. I had so many of them telling me how to apply for Centrelink. It was hilarious. More power to I guess, look, if you got money, you know how to hold on to it and how to get it, and you sure as shit feel like it never. The thing is, though, I have other friends, and when this whole situation happened, and we were comedians, and we were just like, guess I got to go stack shelves, guess I better go dig a ditch or something. Got to come up with some other way to make a living. The amount of well-to-do people from wealthier backgrounds, they were just like, I got to get on Centrelink, was fucking hilarious, and it was instant. I know, I learned so much about people very, very quickly. If you're accustomed to a lifestyle, you ain't letting that shit go. And also the amount of people that pretend to be poor, that was fascinating. Like, I overheard people walking out of the Brisbane Comedy Festival. I literally heard people when the cloud of COVID-19 was coming in talking about, hey, if you just tick the box and say you're Indigenous or Aboriginal, you'll get whatever you're applying for, which did my head in, because the whole time I'm like, I actively try not to tick that box. And I did not realize there are a group of people out there who are more than willing to tick it just to get ahead, even though people from where I'm from look at them as like, oh, you're already ahead. You don't need any more advantages. But yeah, it was so many things. But I wonder how many people are just overhearing about it. Probably everybody, but we'll see. We'll see. So, fuck it. Let's try and talk about some topics, because, again, I was a journalist. Am a journalist. I am again, because I'm not really a stand-up at the moment. But one of the more fascinating things I thought happened, I'm going to try and make it funny. I don't know. If you set out to do it, will it work? Who knows? But so I'm living in Queensland. I'm originally from Western Australia. Did a lot of time in the mines, and just the news, the biggest story at the moment was there was the cops in Port Hedland, Western Australia, South Hedland, had to put a guy down, had to shoot a dude that went on a stabbing rampage. He was the only death. There was a man in critical condition, but a guy ran through a shopping centre in South Hedland, stabbed 4 people, and the police shot him and took him out. And without going into too many details, because, again, legally I don't even know what you can and can't say. Like, last thing I want to do is get sued on my very first podcast. But because we have these weird things called laws in Australia. It's not like in the US where you can literally say whatever you want and do whatever you want. But working in the mines, hearing about this guy who is FIFO, fly in, fly out, in Port Hedland, essentially go on what doesn't seem like a very lucid thought process of stabbing random people in a shopping centre before being tasered and shot. Just reminds me of how rough it was working in the mines. Don't get me wrong, I had quite a few shift changes that got out of control, but none of them ended in gunfire. But I witnessed a lot of depression, a lot of fucked up things that happened to dudes out on mine sites. And this is back in the early 2000s. I can say that now. Oh my God, it's 20 years ago that I was working in the mines, or started, and then I did it for 10 years. Hearing about this guy, I don't know enough about his background, but it's not that insane. And anyone in Port Hedland, it's shocking. It's shocking. This is a bit of a tag or a line that I had in my show Novelty Act, is that it's shocking. No one's surprised. No one in that area, because shift work up in the Pilbara is rough. It's rough mentally. And a lot of people, you can't say that because mining companies have so much power. And even me as a comic, I'm kind of like, oh, well, they get upset if I say this because then I won't be able to get a gig out there because they have comedy out on mine sites. But there isn't a single person that has ever encountered somebody working in the mining industry that wouldn't say that it's a stressful job. And this dude goes into a shopping center in a town that he doesn't live in, but he works there, stabs 4 people, gets tasered, gets shot. So much there to unpack. And I don't even know any of the details. So all I can talk about is from my experience. I'm shocked. It's horrible, but I'm not surprised. Someone could have a mental episode or have something like that. Something like that could happen in these towns. Actually, the only real thing that I'm surprised is that it's this rare. Because, man, I worked on mine sites where there were dudes who would be on the phone, if you were lucky enough to have mobile reception, with their wife, and their wife is literally packing up the house 2,000 kilometers south, emptying bank accounts, which he can't access, and telling him she's leaving. I sat next to a dude while this was happening, and she packed up the house, left with someone he knew on an alternate shift, emptied the bank account, took the kids, and just left him on a mine site where he still had 2 weeks to go. It would take you 2 days to apply to get out back in the early days. And the idea that a mental break could occur, nah, dude, I mean, I went through that phase where I was the young guy on the bus arguing with my partner over the phone that I'm never there enough, and then go through a few relationships, and then, you know, you're 25 and you've been mining for, what, bloody 6-7 years, and you see a young guy in your position doing the exact same thing later, arguing with his girlfriend or partner, or, you know, whoever's arguing with who, and you just recognize it's such a horrible pressure that roster of 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off in the middle of nowhere, all this money, nothing to spend it on except alcohol, depressants, and other illicit substances, which, you know, if you did enough time in the mines, you'd know what goes in your system and can be out in a few hours, so you can, you know, be fine. All sorts of stuff. So a mental break out there isn't that surprising. It's tragic, really bad for the people that got stabbed, because that's just a horrible situation, you know, and they had no connection from, that's what the stories is saying at the moment. Again, I don't want to commit too much to the information because as a journalist, I am also aware that at least we got the ABC. I can actually go off the ABC's reports to a point. And then you've got other situations where, I don't know, this whole COVID-19, you always tend to look on the brighter side of things. We've got, hey, at least he didn't have a gun, which is a very, very accurate yet depressing reality that he only had a knife, which I guess is good, because if we were in the States, man, it'd be a whole different story. And speaking of, I might as well segue to that, about these dickheads storming government buildings in armor and assault rifles. Again, in the United States, they're all the actual state government. This is the thing, though, too. I don't want to go too deep on such a it's so obvious to the smarter people out there, or not even the smarter people, but the mouth-breathing fuckwits that only read the top bits of articles. You've got guys who eat up the camera. Like, as a news editor, you're like, oh, we need the crazy people in the armor and the guns and stuff. We need them on camera. And there's 700 of them. You're like, great, that's all we need. And it's going to look colorful and amazing. And unfortunately, those assholes represent that entire state in the United States. So what I'm talking about is in Michigan, we've got American dudes with guns storming government buildings, threatening to overthrow the government because they don't want to be locked down because their freedom is being taken from them by their state government, which is a load of wank. They're locking you up so that you don't get sick, you fuckholes. And it's so frustrating because it's actual, you know, repression, actual slavery, actual horrible treatment. These people wouldn't have a bloody clue what that is. And yeah, they're taking it out. The Michigan governor, I wish I could remember her name. I should have done a bit more research, but she's been amazing and stoic. I'll probably put it up at some point. And I can't imagine health workers and government agencies that are looking after people that aren't grateful for it. I can't get into that mindset. The reason I became a comedian is because I'm a selfish person and I would rather not have to deal with that shit and deal with my own stuff. But there are legit people out there who work in these public offices to help people. And it's, yeah, it's amazing. I don't know how they do it. Funny thing though, excuse me, there are people that have gone in, stormed these buildings with assault rifles and in all the gear, all the crazy dudes in the States. And I put up a post on my Facebook page. It's gone now because what happened was somebody took all the people posing with their rifles and their guns and they replaced them with dicks, big rubber dicks. Hilarious. It was getting a lot of follows and it was getting a lot of likes and a lot of shares because it's hilarious. You're taking these guys who are trying to look all intimidating and shit and you're putting dicks in their hands, which is what these guns are essentially a substitute for. And that photo just got taken down because I can't help but feel that Facebook maybe found it a little bit offensive. I'm actually going to double check now while I'm doing this to see if that photo is back up, but it probably isn't. It's a funny situation where, no, it's totally gone. It's been completely taken off. That's a shame. That's a shame. Always when I start getting something that's got a little bit more of a following, I bet you this video will stay up. But there you go. There's a bit of censorship for you already on Facebook, which is kind of good because they were allowing so much propaganda up for a while there. And, if anyone's not across the news or cares or that's not what you came to here for, you wanted to see the guy that says cunt a lot. Well, that's Brendan Burns or Jim Jeffries. Look those dudes up. So weird, man. It's so weird. That word, just all the censorship when it comes to comedy or TV or, being conscious of who's going to hear you swear. I always find it odd working in comedy clubs where they're like, you shouldn't say the C word, you shouldn't swear, you shouldn't. You know who else didn't like to swear? Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby. He didn't like bad language either. There's your moral compass, you fucks. And so we've spoken about COVID. Dick pic being taken down, the shooting in South Hedland, depression. I mean, we kind of already touched on that as far as in mine sites. It was when I started, I worked in the mines for 10 years and it was this weird attitude of, you're doing a bit rough. I'll come down to the pub, have a drink, you'll be fine. And then in the 10 years time, they actually started bringing in programs to, if you're feeling depressed, if you're not handling it, home life is, struggling a bit. There are some ways to get help. That was a big shift. I don't know where it's at now. I don't know how sincere it is, but it's been a big shift, at least an awareness of it. And but speaking of Facebook and censorship, though, I've been getting a bit of shit now. So I've been putting up videos about myself doing push-ups. So I never wanted to partake in those Facebook campaigns. We've got heaps of them now. You've got the, top 10 albums that influenced my life and all that shit. I was always really dismissive of them. And then one of my best friends, ironically, from Headland, South Headland, Kevy, gets in touch and he tags me in a post and it's about men's depression and all this sort of stuff. But basically you have to do 25 push-ups every day for 25 days. 25 push-ups in 25 days. That's the name of the campaign. So you film yourself doing 25 push-ups. It's to raise awareness about men's depression. And the funny thing about that, right, I've always not cared about these sort of campaigns, never participated. The minute I found one that would give me more defined arms and a more muscly chest, I was like, we need to save people. But it's a weird thing where the minute I started doing it too, so it's a campaign to help men with depression, mental health, all that sort of stuff. The minute I started doing it, people started giving me shit, and I was kind of like, that's counterintuitive, isn't it? Like I'm participating in something and all you're doing is giving me shit and teasing me and picking on me and bullying, basically. And then I was like, am I going to complain about this? Look at my arms. Look how amazing my arms are. But it's just hilarious how I can be as accepting as possible. But when it comes to something I think is silly, like Facebook campaigns, I'm such a fucking hypocrite too. Like, this is stupid. Why would you do that? And then, I was like, oh, look at these triceps. Yeah, that works. I like that. But yeah, keep an eye out. I've actually lost track of how many days of push-ups I've done. But yeah, and albums and stuff, it's fine, man. We're all in isolation. If you don't like it, don't look at it. Don't fucking follow it up. It's just a Facebook thing. It's really not that big a deal. This is going all right. See, this is another rule about the ABC presenting on radio. You're not supposed to address, you made a mistake, or this is what I like about podcasting. The concept of it, anyway, is that fuck it, you can just be yourself and swear and do, and it's refreshing. Well, plus, I have to admit, it's a lot easier than I thought it would be. I remember when I started out doing stand-up, the idea of doing 5 minutes on stage was insane. Absolutely insane. It felt like an eternity. And now I've been speaking for 26 minutes and I'm kind of like, maybe I could do an hour. But the more important thing is, could you listen? Could you give a shit? I don't know. We'll put this up tonight. We'll see how people think and feel. It's an interesting situation to be in. And I only had one other topic I wanted to talk about before I move on. But again, this is the first Something Clever podcast. Don't know how it's going to go. If there's not enough love for it. I haven't spoken about horses, which I know gets a lot more follows, but I guess I'll finish on that. Is that the wife is in training for the Mongol Derby, and it's pretty exciting. Whereas I run a lot, and she wants to get fit, but thing is, I coach a lot of footy. I've got a good idea about getting fit for something like this. And so we're working together, trying to get her in shape, get her all the gear. The horse riding I can't help her with. I'm probably going to have to get on horseback at some point. It'll be the second time in my life ever where we will be in training for that. But we really want to talk to her about that because it's an insane race. A lot of people don't realize how much is going to go into that. And I'm still trying to decide whether I want to go with her, whether that will be a hindrance or whether it will help her, because basically these women are going to ride 100 kilometers. I shouldn't just say women. These people that are doing the Mongol Derby, ride 100 kilometers a day on horseback, and it's just harrowing. And when you should listen to your body and look out for yourself to survive, I know that horsey girls, my wife in particular, won't do that. They will just ride until they nearly die. That's my biggest concern. That's something I don't want to allow to happen or be privy to. I would rather be there to support if that's going to prevent her doing that, looking after herself or look after her. I don't know. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. This is the first Something Clever podcast. It's taken 30 minutes. A little bit easier than I thought it would be. Who would have thought a comedian talking shit for 30 minutes would have been okay? But I want to talk about the news. It would be nice to work in a news comedy sort of situation for once, as opposed to being told you're going to do that. That's another shot at Tonightly. But for anybody that is aware of my TV career, but that's let's get to know each other. Let's have a chat. Let me know what you think, how it can be improved. We've got a heap of topics. And I only just scratched the surface, but I also, again, didn't want to take the piss. If I couldn't keep your attention for 30 minutes, there's no point doing longer. If I can do it in a shorter period, I'll probably do that as well. It's been an interesting day. A lot of weird things. Got a lot of experience to draw on, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. The ultimate goal is to make millions of dollars doing this. Let's see how that goes. But no, it's fun. Thank you for your attention. I am more than aware that I don't deserve it. I need to stand out in some way. But if you want to be one of those cool people that are in like, I saw it when it was just him in his spare room, and his dogs trying not to make any noise with the cool painting in the background. Great. I'm all for hipsters. But at the same time too, I'm aware we will have guests. We'll have some cool stuff. But this is the first one. So we'll see how we go. If you didn't enjoy it, let me know that too. Let me know what was boring, but also if you did enjoy it, take the positives out of it as well. See what we can do to make it better. Kaya, thank you very much for your time. Take it easy, peeps.